Natalie J. Robb has spoken about the major changes on Emmerdale that have resulted in Moira Dingle losing the farm, and it's clear the storyline has been deeply emotional. With Moira's future already uncertain due to her time in prison, losing her home only adds to the intensity of her situation. When she eventually returns, life in the village is likely to look completely different. A few weeks ago, Moira made the tough decision to sell the farm to Kim Tate after months of pressure from Joe Tate. Already facing imprisonment and a worsening outlook, she felt she had little choice but to agree. The case against her appears strong, even though there are noticeable gaps. As a result, she could be facing a lengthy sentence. Meanwhile, Kane's cancer diagnosis meant his attention needed to shift to his health rather than fighting the Tates. Joe also held leverage over Kane after catching him stealing his car, which left the family with few options. In the end, Moira agreed to the deal, transferring control of the farm to Kim. Since then, Robert and Aaron have taken on the lease and moved into the farmhouse, while Kane and the boys have returned to live with the Dingle family. After 17 years at Butlers Farm, this marks a major turning point for Moira, leaving behind many years of memories. When she is eventually released, everything she once knew will have changed significantly. In a recent interview, Natalie spoke about her reaction to the storyline, admitting she felt disappointed when she first learned about it, even though she understands why it was written that way. She shared that she has always enjoyed working on the set, but also accepts that change is part of the process. She explained that the show is returning to its original roots, focusing again on the core families, which opens the door to many new storylines. While it feels slightly unusual, she believes the show is currently producing strong content. Natalie also discussed how her character's time in prison will have a lasting effect. She believes the experience will make her character tougher, changing the way she presents herself after losing everything she once had. Things she previously didn't prioritize will now become more important as she focuses on improving herself. She described it as a kind of personal transformation, saying her character will come out of prison stronger. However, adjusting to being around people again may feel strange after spending so long in isolation and without the usual chaos of her past life. With such a significant change ahead and her old life left behind, her return to the village is set to begin a completely new chapter. Everything good eventually comes to an end. Natalie J. Robb left devastated by Emmerdale decision. Natalie J. Robb has opened up about her true feelings regarding recent changes on Emmerdale that have seen her character lose the farm. This development means Moira's future will look completely different once she is eventually released from prison, if that happens. A few weeks ago, Moira made the difficult choice to sell the farm to Kim Tate after months of pressure from Joe Tate. With Moira already in prison, partly due to Joe's involvement, she felt she had no strength left to continue fighting. The case against her appears strong, even though there are some gaps in the evidence. She fears she could be facing a long prison sentence. At the same time, Kane's cancer diagnosis required his full attention, leaving him unable to focus on challenging the Tates. Joe also had leverage over Kane after capturing him on camera, stealing his expensive car. Ultimately, Moira decided it was time to let go of the farm. She agreed to a deal that transferred ownership to Kim. Since then, Robert and Aaron have taken on the lease, while Kane and the boys have returned to live with the Dingle family. After 17 years at Butlers Farm, this represents a major shift for Moira as she leaves behind many memories. When she is eventually released, everything in her life will be completely different. In a recent interview, Natalie admitted she was deeply disappointed when she learned about the storyline, although she understands the reasoning behind it, and accepts that all things must eventually come to an end. Natalie shared that she has always enjoyed working on the set, but she also accepts and embraces change. She explained that although things feel a bit different, the show is returning to its original roots by focusing again on the core families. This shift, she believes, opens the door to many new storylines. While it feels slightly unusual, she acknowledged that all things must eventually come to an end, and added that she is pleased with the strong work being produced at the moment. She also discussed how prison will have a lasting effect on her character over time. She believes the experience will toughen her character, changing the way she carries herself after losing everything. Things she previously didn't prioritize will now become more important, as she focuses on rebuilding her confidence and sense of self. Natalie described it as a kind of personal rebirth, saying her character will come out stronger but different. However, returning to being around people again may feel strange after spending so long in isolation, especially without the constant chaos she was once used to. Emmerdale unveils Joe Tate's most ruthless action yet, as he tears down Holly's memorial. Joe Tate displays no compassion next week when he orders his crew to level everything across the Butlers Farm land, including the gravesite where Holly Barton is laid to rest. His harsh behavior directly breaks the sincere promise Kim made to Moira during the agreement for the Tate takeover of her farm. One of the hardest parts of selling Butlers was that Moira had to give up access to her daughter's burial place. Kim had vowed to respect and safeguard the memorial, allowing Moira to visit whenever she wished. However, Joe shows no consideration as he destroys the land and disregards Kim's promise. This is one of the most shocking and disgraceful things Joe Tate has ever done, and that's saying a lot, reveals our Emmerdale source. Moira is going through absolute misery right now, and when she learns that he has destroyed Holly's memorial, it will leave her completely heartbroken. She is currently stuck in prison for a crime she didn't commit, and discovering Joe's actions could push her to her limits, even driving her to consider killing him. Natalie described it as a kind of personal rebirth, saying her character will come out stronger but different. However, returning to being around people again may feel strange after spending so long in isolation, especially without the constant chaos she was once used to. If the Dingles believed Joe might show more understanding now that he has secured the land and knows about Kane's cancer diagnosis, they were mistaken. Rather than showing any sympathy, Joe appears to have become even more determined to cause them pain. He continues with his farm plans without hesitation and shows no concern for damaging Holly's grave, despite knowing how deeply it will hurt Moira and her family and spark further conflict. His behavior also completely undermines Kim's promise to protect the area and allow Moira a place to grieve and remember her daughter. The question remains, will Joe regret his cruel behavior when Moira is finally released? Emmerdale typically airs on weeknights at 8 p.m. on ITV, with episodes available early on ITVX from 7 a.m.